Can I invest real estate with other people? What are the risks of co-owning? And what if different partners want different things at the end of the day? So is buying property with your partner, friend or sibling a good idea? Today I'll explain more with you. So I'll be going through 2 articles with you. First is when a 2 million house have too many owners. And next, what are the risks of investing real estate with other people? Then I'll explain the different burning questions which you might have today. These are the different questions and what should you do today if you want to buy property with another partner or friend, or if you really own a property with another partner, friend or family, what should you be doing today because you're already co-owning a property. Before I start, remember to help me like, share and subscribe. I'm Jia Eun and I actually do weekly content to share more about the different property matters that you might also have, because these are very common topics that all buyers and sellers will have in the market. So the first article is actually when the $2 million property have many owners, what will actually happen and what are the different conflicts that actually happen in the end. So in this scenario, there's a $2.4 million house and there's a total of 4 different owners in this house, and there's actually disputes that are ongoing because of this that is happening. Usually people would think of having just 2 owners in the property, and in this case there's a total of 4 different owners. So this problem actually started when this house was owned by 2 siblings. The problem actually happened after these 2 siblings have died and they willed half of their share to even more relatives. So in the end, there was a total of 4 owners in this whole entire problem itself. And also in this situation itself, the different owners have different percentage. So 2 of them are actually the owner's daughter, one with 35%, one with 25%, and the other 2 are actually their aunt with a 10% and a 30%. So in total it's split into 25, 35, 10 and 30. It's an uneven split to 4 different owners. Then this dispute actually started when the aunts say that they want to sell the property and start to distribute it according to their percentage share. But the 2 niece and nephew are already staying in the property and they object to the sale, so they do not want to sell the property. In this case, should the property be sold or should the property be actually left to the children of the parties that have already died? And which of these owners actually have a bigger say because they have different amount of percentage right here. The problem got so bad that the aunt actually applied to the High Court forcing the other owners to sell, and the High Court actually went to solve this. Usually the court will only intervene in deserving case. This means that please do not, if you have dispute, go to the court. The court only accept cases that are very, very important. Fast forward, the court did take some time. What happened to them in the end? So in the end, the court actually respect the decision that those parties have actually willed the houses to the different owners, but they feel that in this case itself, the sale of the house should actually happen because in this case, the aunts are actually older right now, while the children, if they were to take the profits, they can actually buy another house. So why should they stop the sale of the house itself? So one important thing that you can actually learn in this case is that if you're planning your will or if you're passing your house to someone, it's more prudent when you actually do not will it to a person. You should actually will such that this house will be sold and the shares will actually split accordingly, so that it's easier for it to be split accordingly next time in the future. Some of you might also ask, why not the niece and nephew actually buy over the aunt share? Because maybe they can buy over the aunt share. But actually the court did say that co-owners will not be forced to buy over the properties, and it also depends on whether the co-owners can they actually afford and have enough cash to buy over the other owners' properties. So they will not be forced to buy over the property in the event that one of the owners want to sell the property. And it's also important to take note, if you're going to buy over the other property share, your price that you actually sell it cannot be an unfair price, otherwise you'll be unjust. The valuation that you are selling the price at have to be the market value for the banks and also the court to acknowledge this whole transaction itself. This is because all owners, they deserve to have the price in the best price of the property itself, and that's why we need to sell it at a reasonable price. And in the end, what happened to this whole entire court case, they actually say that the aunt can have the open sale of a valuation of $2.4 million. Then the proceeds will actually be distributed according to the 4 owners according to their percentage share. So in the end, the court actually ruled that these aunts, they do have the right to sell the house, and the niece and nephew will also get their share of it. So the main takeaway for this is to be prudent when you're actually splitting your property according to your will. If you actually pass on, how are you going to pass the property to your next family and relative? there's no guarantee that they will not be fighting over the unequal shares in case that you will it, but at least you can save the time for them to go to the court, the high court, just because a few owners agree to sell and a few others disagree to sell in this scenario itself. So actually having more than 2 owners in one property, it might create such problems, and in the end you have to go to high court to actually solve it. Next, I'll actually discuss the different risks that you will have if you actually invest real estate with different people. So property is very different from the stock market. It doesn't mean that if you want to sell a property, you can sell it anytime. And also, if you're investing real estate with other people, you need to make sure that all the owners that you invest with are aligned in the property decision. So there could be a case where one party actually disagree to sell and they might end up fighting with you because they refuse to sell. And also, they might not even have the cash to buy out and buy over you if you're buying with a few different owners. So this actually happened to a case of 2 brothers who bought a property together and their relationship was so bitter. So imagine you wanted to buy a property for investment, but because you didn't discuss properly, end up you lost a brother or a sister. This is something that you might not want it to happen, and that's why when you're investing with other people, you need to understand the risk first before you actually get into it. So what happened to it is that they did not talk to each other for more than a decade, more than 10 years, and in fact when they're talking, they talked through the lawyers and they eventually went to the court. So from buying a property, a happy thing, investing money together and making profits together, eventually these 2 brothers went to the court. So same thing like the previous case, eventually the High Court said that the house must be sold, and this is actually an order, but this was not sold at the price that the 2 brothers actually discussed previously. In fact, it was actually sold lesser than what they actually discussed in the beginning. In fact, this elder brother went to sue the younger brother again for the shortfall in terms of the profits and also the cost of selling the house. So the brothers actually have a huge fight and yeah, they sue each other again. So what we learned from this whole entire story is know your budget, know your limit, and also know your taxes. If you are buying with another person or you own a second property, you might have ABSD, and property investment is actually not cheap. You need to plan in advance and understand what you're doing. Otherwise, you will be stuck with just a property. Maybe you cannot cash out because you invest with the co-partner, and in the end, you'll be asset rich but cash poor. So what this story actually tells us that if you are buying with another person, not your spouse or more than 2 person, you really need to be careful what you are doing. And next, we actually move on to the burning questions that you might have. So first question, what is the financial and legal risk of co-owning a property with another owner? So firstly, because you buy a property with another owner or few parties, this means that all of you are jointly responsible for the mortgage and also the taxes and whichever expenses that comes out of the house itself. If one person accidentally got bankrupt or run away from the property, you are liable for the whole entire loan because you co-own the property together. And also, if you're making any major decision, whether is it selling or buying or renting, you need to make it together. Your decision must be together, all the owners must be aligned. Otherwise, like the similar situation will happen to the previous examples, you will go to the High Court because there is disagreement among the different parties itself. So these are the different risks for the legal and financial side. So if you're looking to buy a property together, please make sure that you discuss these different elements together before you actually co-share a property together. So the next question is, what happens if there's any dispute like divorce, fallout, or financial trouble? So if this actually happened to you, there's a risk that part of your property will be sold and you might not be able to get the full sum back, because when you co-share a property together, you are sharing all the different responsibilities, but you cannot control whether the person get divorced or get any financial trouble, and it depends on the rights of the property at that point of time. So in the worst case scenario, you will need to go to the court and also fight for your own rights, and depending on the different laws and what the party have actually contributed in terms of the cash upfront, the down payment, or also the loan, your decisions according to the High Court will be different. So you need to plan for the worst case scenario in the dispute itself, and it's very hard to say because you need to debate in the High Court itself. The third question is, can you still qualify for another home loan if you are co-owner? So yes, you can still qualify for another home loan, but you're subjected to LTV, which is the loan to value ratio, and also the ABSD, which is the additional buyer stamp duty. So if you're looking at the LTV today, there is a difference between the first home loan, second home loan, and also the third home loan. So for example, if you already have one property today and you decided to buy your second property, depending on your age limit, your loan to value might not be 75% like the previous version. Your loan value might drop to 45% if you are below 65 years old and drop to 35% for your third property when you are below 65 years old. So your minimum cash down payment will also be different according to the loan amount that you can qualify. But most importantly, because your loan to value drop, this might mean that you need more cash, because with 45% loan to value, this will mean that you need at least 55% in terms of the cash, and also you need to add the stamp duty and also the ABSD. So in total, if you're owning your second property, you need to calculate this in terms of the loan available to you and also the ABSD. And next, for the ABSD, it also differs according to your first property, second property or third property, and also what citizenship are you at the time that you are actually buying. So for first property of Singaporeans, we are very fortunate, it's 0%, and second property is taxed at 20%, and for PRs, your second property is taxed at 30%, and for foreigners is a flat of 60% all the way. So getting a second property may not be as easy as it seems. So you also need to account for the additional buyer stamp duty on top of the normal buyer stamp duty, because all these are different cash up front that you need to pay, and they're actually quite huge. So the fourth question is it better to buy a smaller unit solo or buy a bigger one with someone? So buying solo and buying someone have its pros and cons. If you are buying solo, you have more flexibility and control of when you want to buy and sell, and you do not need to worry about the joint legal and financial responsibilities. Whereas if you are buying for someone, you might have more upsides in terms of the capital appreciation. However, you need to agree in terms of the financial and legal aspects, and also agree on how you're going to exit and split the profits in the future. So just make sure that if you're having a co-owner and two-person, you need to be aligned in terms of your plans in the future, and you must have the joint responsibilities both financially and emotionally. So the fourth question is there any ideal number of co-owners before the things get too complicated in terms of the financial or legal part or permission to sell and actually buy? Yes, there is an ideal number. The ideal number is 2%, but if you want to go to 3, you can try, and if you go beyond 3, it's actually very, very complex, because it takes longer time for you to agree in terms of whether you want to buy, sell or rent, and there's more responsibilities and slower decisions. However, if you have a family trust or you're buying for an association business arrangement, then clearly define your roles, then it will be less complicated. Otherwise, I will recommend you to keep it to only 2 co-owners, because things are actually easier for both of you to agree what you want to do next and be aligned. Last but not least, the last question is, how do you handle if one owner wants to sell but the other co-owners do not want to sell? So for this part, it's actually important for you to have an agreement before that, because it's very sensitive in terms of the selling price and also the profit and the timeline. So it's best if you have an agreement before that. But if you do not have any agreement right now, it's ideal for you to have mediation right now. Otherwise, like the case that you see in the earlier examples, you will need to go to court to force the property sale, because there are a few owners that do not want to sell at the moment. Also, when you have an agreement with the co-owners before you buy the property, maybe you guys want to consider, is there any option for you guys to buy out if one person decided to sell? Or is there any agreement in terms of the sale price? And is there any trigger point for the price or time, so that once you hit this trigger price, everyone agree to exit at this point? So they will be easier if you want to co-share together. So alright, these are the answers for the 6 questions that I have for the burning questions. If you have more questions, feel free to drop me a message and I will explain to you from my point of view. So next we have here, if you're actually buying with another partner or buying alone, these are the 5 golden principles that I share with all my clients. Number 1, save and start investing as early as you can, because time is money. The earlier you start to save and invest in property, the more it compounds and you can actually grow into a bigger sum in the future. Number 2, always aim to increase your net asset worth. This means that even if you have a property right now, think about how you can expand this property net asset value and also maybe double it or triple it with the current property that you have. How are you going to increase this net asset value? Number 3, invest based on numbers, looking at the ROIs, looking at the price that you're buying, whether is it safe and not emotions. Number 4, buy for the future and not just the present. So when we look into the prices, we compare with the future price and not just the present price. Also, when we are exiting in the future, is it easier for you to exit? Because if you do not think about the future, it might be challenging for you to exit. So buy with a future end in mind. And last but not least, have 18 months of emergency fund in case of emergencies like any medical or any economical emergencies that you lose a job. You at least still have funds for you to sustain for 18 months and you're not forced to sell your property immediately. So these are the 5 golden principles that you need to have before you actually move on to buying a property alone or with someone. And next we'll move on to buyers and sellers. If you're planning to co-share, what should you do? And for sellers, if you already co-own your property and you want to sell, what should you do? So for buyers, if you're planning to co-own with a friend, partner or relative, number one, as I mentioned, you need to discuss the financial and the legal aspect. It's best you already have an exit plan in mind. So what are the triggering price and triggering time that you might have agreement right now so that in the future you will not be caught off guard. So it's best if you have all these points inside the co-ownership agreement so that you have already agreed between both of you and you're already aligned in terms of the goals and the timeline. It's recommended to over prepare. So if it's possible, go to a law firm and have this legally documented so that it's easier for you in the future. And for sellers that you already own the property with someone and now you want to sell, what happens if the other party do not want to sell? Unfortunately, it might get emotionally or financially messy, especially if you do not have a legal agreement with the other partner at the moment. So what you want to do now is get the property valued by different valuers or different banks and discuss whether is it possible to buy over the other person's share, or if there's a timeline that you can work out between both parties or all the parties so that everyone is comfortable to exit at the same time. And it's more importantly for you to engage a neutral party to mediate or actually advise, because being inside this whole situation, you might be very emotional, and the worst case scenario is you fight and you need to talk to the other person through a lawyer. You are no longer friends, no longer like a brother. This is a worst case scenario. So try to mediate and not go to court if this is currently your situation. So today we've already gone through what are the different risks of co-owning with different buyers for the different properties, and also if you're making a will, how should you actually split the property? Should you split it by different owners or the percentage of the share, or sell first then split by the percentage of share? And what are the burning questions that you might have? You have more questions or you do not know what to do if you are co-owning a property with someone, or if you're buying a property by yourself, feel free to drop me a text at 9431-4533. My number is over here, and also I have different social medias over here on the top left, and you can find me easily on these channels. And please help me to like, share and subscribe, because this really helped me to create more good content for you guys and motivate me to work harder for you. So help me to share this, and that's it. Thank you so much and bye bye.